That Thanksgiving dinner was supposed to be my olive branch. After 3 years of silence, I walked back into my childhood home, carrying nothing but cautious hope and a bottle of wine. I sat at that familiar table, surrounded by faces I had missed more than I wanted to admit, feeling like a stranger in my own family. My phone sat on the coffee table screen, down innocent, and then it buzzed. My sister Natalie glanced at it. Just one look. One accidental glimpse at the notification lighting up my screen. I did not know that one accidental glance at my phone screen would turn the evening into a battlefield. I did not know that the people I came to reconnect with would become people I would need to walk away from forever. Before I dive into what happened that night, I would love to know, where are you watching from? Drop your location in the comments. If you have ever felt like the outsider in your own family, hit that like button. You are not alone. And subscribe, because this story gets way more intense than I ever imagined it would. Let me take you back to the beginning to understand why that Thanksgiving dinner meant so much to me, and why it all fell apart so fast. I need you to understand my family to understand why that night hurt the way it did. My father, Harold, spent his entire career as an accountant for a prestigious firm in Hartford, Connecticut. Numbers, stability, predictability. That was his world. My mother, Dorothy, taught high school English for 30 years before retiring. She loved structure, grammar, the right way to do things. And then there was my sister, Natalie. 4 years older than me, she was the golden child. Law school at Georgetown. Married at 27 to Greg, another lawyer, 2 kids by 30. The blueprint of success, according to our parents. I was different. I loved computers, code building things that did not exist yet. When I was 18, halfway through my sophomore year at Boston University, I made a decision that shattered our family. I dropped out. Not because I was failing, not because I was lost, but because I had an idea, a vision for something bigger than a degree could give me. I wanted to build a tech startup. I still remember the dinner when I told them. We were sitting in the same dining room where that Thanksgiving disaster would unfold years later. I explained my plan, the opportunity, the potential. My father said nothing. He just stared at his plate, jaw tight. My mother cried. Actually cried, like I had told her I was dying. And Natalie laughed. Not a kind laugh, a mocking one. She said, "And I will never forget this. You are throwing your life away, Barrett. But hey, at least we will have a good story about the family screw-up." They called my decision reckless, irresponsible, an embarrassment. Harold said I was spitting on every sacrifice they had made for my education. Dorothy said I was breaking her heart. Natalie told her friends at book club that I was the cautionary tale she would tell her kids. And just like that, I became the outcast. The first 3 years were brutal. I moved to San Francisco with $2,000 and a dream. I lived in a studio apartment the size of a closet, worked as a freelance developer for anyone who would pay me. My diet consisted of ramen noodles and peanut butter sandwiches. I spent nights coding until 3 or 4 in the morning, debugging for clients, slowly building a portfolio. My family did not call, not once. I would send occasional text messages on birthdays and holidays. They would respond with 1 or 2 words. Thanks. Okay. Nothing more. Year 4 changed everything. I met 2 other developers at a tech meetup who shared my vision. We co-founded a startup together. We built a platform that helped small businesses streamline their operations, manage inventory, handle customer relationships all in one place. It was not revolutionary, but it solved real problems. We worked 80-hour weeks. We lived on coffee and determination. And slowly the platform grew. Clients came, revenue followed. By year 5, we caught the attention of a major tech company. They wanted to acquire us. The negotiations took months, but eventually we sold. After taxes, stock options, and splitting with my co-founders, I walked away with $12 million. $12 million. I was 28 years old, and I had more money than I knew what to do with. But here is the thing. During those 5 years, my family never called to ask if I was okay, never checked in. never apologized for doubting me. I heard through the grapevine that Natalie would still make jokes about me at parties. My brother, the dropout. They had written me off completely. So when I decided to fly home for Thanksgiving this year, it was not about the money. It was about hope. Foolish, stubborn hope that maybe, just maybe, enough time had passed. Maybe we could start over. I called my mother 2 weeks before the holiday. She sounded surprised, cautiously pleased. "It would be nice to have you home, Barrett," she said. There was warmth in her voice, but something guarded, too. I bought a plane ticket from San Francisco. I packed thoughtful gifts for everyone. Nothing expensive, just meaningful things I thought they would like. On the flight, I stared out the window and imagined what it would feel like to belong again. When I arrived at the house, only Dorothy answered the door. She hugged me, but it was brief, almost formal. Harold was in the living room watching football. He glanced up, nodded, but did not stand. Did not hug me. Just a nod. Natalie arrived late with Greg and their 2 kids, a girl named Emma and a boy named Jack. She offered a quick hay-and-a-half smile that did not reach her eyes. Her gaze swept over me, evaluating, judging. I could feel the chill in the room. This was not the warm reunion I had envisioned. But I pushed the feeling down, told myself to give it time. That was my first mistake. Thanksgiving dinner was everything you would expect. The dining room table was covered with a linen cloth Dorothy had owned for decades. In the center sat a perfectly roasted turkey, golden and glistening. Around it, dishes crowded for space. Stuffing with sage and onions, mashed potatoes drowning in butter, green bean casserole, cranberry sauce, both jellied and homemade, sweet potato casserole with marshmallows on top, rolls still warm from the oven, and in the kitchen waiting for dessert 2 pumpkin pies. Dorothy tried her best to keep the conversation light. She asked me about California, about the weather, about what I did for work. I kept my answers vague. I do software consulting. Things are stable. I live in a nice neighborhood. I did not mention the money. I did not mention the sale. I wanted them to accept me for who I was, not what I had. Harold barely spoke. He focused on his food, occasionally grunting in response to something Dorothy said. Greg talked about his law firm, the cases they were handling, the stress of it all. Natalie chimed in about their financial struggles. She said it casually, but I could hear the edge underneath. We are barely making it work, even with both of us working full-time. Greg's firm cut bonuses this year, and my student loans are still crushing us. Between the mortgage, the car payments, and private school tuition for the kids, I do not know how we are going to manage. Dorothy offered to help with piano lessons for Emma. Natalie sighed. "That would be great, Mom. Every little bit helps." Then she looked at me. Her eyes were sharp, almost challenging. "At least we are doing things the right way, not gambling on pipe dreams." I bit the inside of my cheek and said nothing. The implication was clear. I had gambled. I had failed in their eyes, or at least that is what they still believed. The sting of her words burned, but I kept quiet. I was not here to fight. I was here to try. After dinner, we moved to the living room. Harold turned on the football game. Greg sat beside him, half watching. Natalie settled on the couch with a glass of wine. Emma and Jack played with toys in the corner. Dorothy brought out coffee. I sat on the other couch, my phone on the coffee table in front of me. I excused myself to help my mother in the kitchen. She was rinsing plates, stacking them by the sink. We made small talk. She asked if I was seeing anyone. I told her I had been on a few dates, but nothing serious. She smiled a little sadly and said she hoped I would find someone. I wanted to tell her how lonely I had been, how much I had missed having a family. But the words stuck in my throat. While I was in the kitchen, my phone buzzed on the coffee table. A notification. Just a normal email notification. Except it was not normal. It was from my financial advisor. The subject line read, Q4 Portfolio Update. $12.4 million balance. Natalie was sitting closest to the table. She glanced down at the noise, saw the screen light up, saw the words. Her eyes widened. She looked again as if she could not believe what she was reading. Then before I came back into the room, she picked up my phone. She opened the email. She read it. When I walked back in, she was holding my phone, staring at the screen, like it had just delivered news of an alien invasion. "What are you doing with my phone?" I asked. My voice was calm, but my heart started pounding. She looked up at me. Her face was pale, then flushed red. Her voice came out strangled. "Is this real? $12 million. The room went silent. Harold muted the television. Greg stood up. Dorothy stepped out of the kitchen dish towel still in her hands. "What is going on?" she asked. Natalie's voice rose shrill and disbelieving. "Barrett has $12 million, and he has been sitting here acting like he is barely scraping by." I kept my voice steady. "That is my private information, Natalie. You had no right to look at my phone." Harold stood up, his face turning red. $12 million. How is that even possible? What have you been doing out there? I explained briefly about the startup, the platform we built, the acquisition. I kept it simple, factual, but Natalie was not listening. She interrupted, her voice shaking with anger. "And you did not think to help your own family? We are drowning in debt. Barrett drowning, and you are sitting on millions." Dorothy moved closer, her expression confused, almost hurt. "Barrett, honey, is this true? Why did not you tell us?" I looked at her. "Because it is my money, Mom. I earned it, and frankly this family has not exactly been supportive of my choices." Greg stepped forward, his lawyer instincts kicking in. "Supportive? Your sister has been working herself to the bone while you were playing with computers. You owe this family." Something inside me snapped. Not in anger, in clarity. I realized, standing there with all of them staring at me, that they did not see me. They saw a bank account. They saw money they thought they were entitled to. Natalie's voice cut through my thoughts. "I deserve that money more than you do." She was shaking, tears streaming down her face, but they were not tears of sadness. They were tears of rage, of entitlement. "I did everything right. I went to law school, got married, had kids. I sacrificed everything while you were being selfish." Harold nodded, his voice hard. "Your sister has a point, Barrett. Family is supposed to help family." I looked around the room. Every single one of them was staring at me with expectation, with greed. Even Dorothy, who had always been the gentlest, looked conflicted, like she wanted to defend me but could not quite bring herself to do it. In that moment, staring at the faces of my own family, faces twisted with resentment and greed, I realized I had never really belonged here, and I never would. Natalie did not stop. The shock had worn off, replaced by a frenzied determination. She started talking faster, listing out exactly what she needed. "I am not asking for all of it, Barrett. Just enough to make our lives manageable. We need to pay off the house. That is $400,000. The student loans are $250,000. Then there are the car payments, maybe another $50,000 to clear those. And we should set up a college fund for Emma and Jack, at least $500,000, so they are covered. Plus we need a cushion for emergencies, maybe $350,000. I stood there doing the math in my head. She was asking for nearly $1.5 million, casually, like it was nothing, like I owed it to her. Greg nodded along. "That is reasonable, Barrett. Think about it. Your niece and nephew. Do not you want them to have a good education, a stable future? You could change their lives." Harold's voice was heavy-weighted with disappointment. "Barrett, you have always been selfish. This is your chance to prove you are a real man, a real part of this family. Show us you have grown up." Dorothy, standing by the doorway, wringing the dish towel in her hands, spoke softly. "Maybe you could help a little, just to ease their burden." Her voice was tentative, but the request was there. Even she thought I should give in. Natalie, emboldened by the support, started getting excited. "Oh my God, if you do this, it will change everything for us. We could finally breathe. We could take the kids on a real vacation. We could stop worrying every single month." She looked at me with something close to desperation, but underneath it was entitlement. She believed she deserved this. She genuinely believed it. I stood there silent, letting them talk, letting them reveal who they really were. And then when Natalie paused to take a breath, I spoke. My voice was calm, firm, final. No. Natalie blinked. What I said? No. I am not giving you a single dollar. The room exploded. Natalie stood up, her wine glass nearly falling from her hand. What, are you serious right now? I looked at each of them one by one. For the past 10 years when I was struggling, sleeping on air mattresses, living on credit cards, eating ramen noodles for weeks because I could not afford anything else, not one of you offered help. Not one phone call asking if I was okay. Not one email. Nothing. Harold started to interrupt, but I kept going. When I told you I was dropping out of college to pursue my dream, Dad, you said I was throwing my life away. You called me irresponsible. You said I was spitting on your sacrifices. I turned to Natalie. You laughed at me. You told your friends I was the family embarrassment. You made jokes about me at parties for years. I heard about it. People told me. I looked at my mother. Mom, you cried like I had died, instead of asking me why this mattered to me. Instead of supporting the path I chose, my voice grew stronger. I built this from nothing. Every single dollar came from my sweat, my sleepless nights, my risks. I took chances you would never take because you were too afraid. And now you want a piece of it. Not because you are proud of me, not because you want to celebrate my success, but because you think you are entitled to it. Natalie was crying openly now. How can you be so cruel? I am your sister. I did not waver, and you have been a terrible sister. You did not want me in your life when I had nothing. You do not get to demand anything now that I have something. Harold's face was purple with rage. If you walk out that door without helping your sister, you are no son of mine. I picked up my jacket from the back of the couch. Then I guess I am not your son. I have made peace with that. Dorothy rushed forward, her voice desperate. Barrett, please do not do this. We are family. I turned to her, and I felt my heart break a little. Family supports each other in hard times, not just when there is money involved. You chose your side tonight, Mom. All of you did. Greg moved to block the door. You are not leaving until we settle this. I looked at him, calm, but firm. Move. Unless you want me to call the police for unlawful detention. He hesitated, then stepped aside. I walked to the door, my hand on the knob, and I paused. I looked back one last time. I wanted to remember this moment, to remember their faces, so I would never doubt my decision. I came here hoping we could rebuild something. I was willing to forgive the past, but tonight showed me who you really are. I looked directly at Natalie. You made your choices. You chose the safe path, the approved path. That is fine. But my path was mine to choose, and my success is mine to keep. My voice dropped, quiet but absolute. None of you will ever see a penny from me. Not now. Not ever. Lose my number. I opened the door and stepped out into the cold November night. The door slammed behind me, the sound echoing in the stillness. I walked to my rental car, got in, and sat there for a moment, breathing in the freezing air. My hands were shaking. But underneath the pain, underneath the shock of what had just happened, I felt something else. I felt lighter. I drove away from that house for the last time, and with every mile the weight on my chest grew lighter. They had made their choice, and I had made mine. I flew back to San Francisco the next morning. I did not sleep much that night. I kept replaying the scene in my head, every word, every expression. Part of me wondered if I had been too harsh. Part of me wondered if I should have given them something just to keep the peace. But by the time the sun came up, I knew I had done the right thing. The first thing I did when I got home was change my phone number. I blocked all of them on every social media platform I had. I did not want to see their messages, their attempts to guilt me or manipulate me. I needed space. I needed silence. The first few days were hard. Grief is a strange thing. You can grieve people who are still alive. I grieved the family I had hoped to have the reconciliation I had dreamed about. I sat by the window of my apartment, looking out at the San Francisco skyline, and I let myself feel the loss. It hurt. It hurt more than I expected. Natalie tried to reach out through mutual acquaintances, people we both knew from childhood. The messages were angry. You are heartless. I hope you are happy being alone with your money. You have destroyed this family. I did not respond. Harold sent one email. The subject line was empty. The body of the email said, "You have broken your mother's heart. I hope you can live with that." I read it once, then deleted it. I could live with it. Because staying would have broken me. I threw myself into rebuilding my life, but this time on my own terms. I reconnected with old friends from my startup days, people who had known me when I had nothing, people who valued me for who I was. I called up Tyler, my college roommate, the only person who had supported my decision to drop out. We met for dinner at a small Italian place in North Beach. I told him everything that had happened at Thanksgiving. He listened, shaking his head. When I finished, he said, "Man, you did the right thing. Toxic is toxic even if it is blood. You do not owe them anything." Hearing him say it out loud helped. I started seeing a therapist to process the family trauma. It was not easy. I had been carrying guilt for years. Guilt for not being the son and brother they wanted. In therapy, I realized something crucial. Their approval was never worth sacrificing my identity. I had spent so much of my life trying to earn their love, and it was never going to happen. Not because I was not good enough, but because they could not see past their own expectations. I started dating again. I met someone, a woman named Zoe. She was a third-grade teacher, passionate about her work, kind in a way that felt genuine. When we first met, she had no idea about my financial situation. I told her I worked in tech consulting. We went on simple dates, coffee, walks through Golden Gate Park, museums. She liked me for me, and that meant everything. I built a chosen family, close friends who showed up when I needed them, people who celebrated my wins and supported me through losses. I started mentoring young entrepreneurs from disadvantaged backgrounds, people who reminded me of my younger self. I wanted to give them the encouragement I never had. I also started a small scholarship fund for college dropouts pursuing careers in tech. It was something I wished had existed when I needed it most. A year passed. A full year since that Thanksgiving. I had not heard from my family, and I did not reach out. Occasionally I wondered about them. I wondered if they had figured out their finances. I wondered if they regretted how things had ended. But I did not regret my decision. Not once. I heard through the grapevine that Natalie and Greg had managed to get their debt under control. They refinanced the house, consolidated the loans. They were making it work. Harold, I was told, was still bitter. He apparently told people at his country club that his son had abandoned the family. Dorothy, I heard, missed me, but she never reached out, and I did not reach out to her. Some bridges once burned cannot be rebuilt. My life became fuller, happier. I bought a modest home in the suburbs south of San Francisco, a place with a backyard and a porch. I adopted a dog, a golden retriever mix I named Copper. He became my constant companion. On Thanksgiving that year, I hosted dinner at my house. Tyler came along with a few other close friends. Zoe was there too. We cooked together, laughed, told stories. It felt like family, real family. The kind built on choice, not obligation. I realized something profound. The money was just a tool. It gave me freedom, security, the ability to live comfortably. But it did not define my worth. My worth came from how I treated people, how I showed up, how I chose to live my life. I invested wisely, donated to causes I cared about, and lived well, but not extravagantly. I did not need a mansion or a Ferrari to prove anything. I just needed peace. I learned that you cannot buy love and you should not have to. Real family, whether biological or chosen, supports you unconditionally. They celebrate your wins and hold you up during losses. They do not show up only when there is something in it for them. I learned that success is not something you deserve because you took the so-called right path. Success is something you earn through risk, hard work, and persistence. No one is entitled to the fruits of someone else's labor, no matter how closely related they are. I learned that your worth is not determined by others' approval. It is determined by how you treat yourself and others when no one is watching. And I learned about forgiveness. I forgave them not because they deserved it, but because I deserved peace. Forgiveness did not mean reconciliation. It meant releasing the anger that had been poisoning me. It meant letting go of the fantasy that they would ever be the family I needed them to be. Sometimes the hardest thing is walking away from people you love, but sometimes it is the only way to save yourself. I do not know if I will ever hear from them again. Part of me hopes they have learned something, grown somehow, but I am not waiting for that call anymore. I am building my life on my terms, surrounded by people who value me for who I am, not what I have. And you know what? That Thanksgiving night when I walked out into the cold was not the end of my family. It was the beginning of finding the family I actually deserved. So let me ask you, have you ever had to walk away from family because they could not accept who you truly are? Drop your answer in the comments. I would love to hear your stories. If this resonated with you, please hit that like button and share this video with someone who needs to hear it. And if you have not already, subscribe to the channel because I will keep sharing real stories like this, stories that remind us we are not alone in our struggles. Thank you for listening. I hope wherever you are surrounded by people who see you, really see you and love you for exactly who you are. Take care of yourselves out there.